All right, we're diving into some seriously deep mystical waters today with the Goetia. You know, Solomon, 72 demons, rituals. Yeah, the excerpts from Mathers and Crowley's translation you sent, they're wild.
It's amazing how this grimoire, this book of magic claims to hold the secret Solomon used to actually command demons. And it wasn't just some fringe thing.
Right, right.
Scholars and intellectuals, they really took it seriously, like a whole system of knowledge with rules, hierarchies, real dangers.
Okay, so for those of us who haven't tried binding any demons lately, what exactly are we talking about here? What is the Goetia?
So picture this. It's like a magical who's who. 72 demons, each with their own rank,
Okay.
powers, and then a unique sigil, like their own magical fingerprint. The book says Solomon used this knowledge to control them.
Not exactly your typical bedtime story, but our translator, Crowley, was known for kind of shaking things up, magically speaking.
Yeah.
What was his take on all this?
Okay, so Crowley basically said, forget about these external demons. He said the spirits are actually parts of the human brain. Yeah. And the seals, the names of God, even the incense you need, they're tools, he says, to stimulate specific mental powers.
Hold on. So instead of summoning some demon to, like, grant your wishes, you're actually activating your own abilities. That's a huge difference.
It is. It's a complete paradigm shift. Like, the Goetia says the demon Lemegeton, he teaches logic. Crowley says, no, that's not about an actual demon. It's about tapping into your own logical faculties.
Ah, interesting.
So it kind of turns that whole demonic pact thing on its head, makes it more about self-mastery.
Less outsourcing your problems to a demon and more. Becoming your own inner demon slayer, kind of.
Exactly.
But, I mean, some of the powers in this book, they sound intense, even dangerous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Crowley was very clear about the risks, too.
Right.
He said this kind of inner exploration, it definitely has its risks. Take, for instance, the idea of destroying your enemies through magic. Crowley's interpretation. He said it's about overcoming the illusion of duality. Like good versus evil, us versus them, and cultivating compassion instead. It's not about literal destruction, but inner transformation.
That's deep. What about things like understanding animal voices? I mean, that's another power attributed to some of these spirits.
Yeah. Crowley saw it as like honing your natural observation skills to an almost superhuman level. So imagine reading these subtle cues, understanding body language, maybe even sensing intentions, all amplified, right? It's fascinating how he reinterprets these fantastical powers as like untapped human potential.
Okay, so we've got Crowley's kind of mind-bending take on all of this.
Yeah.
But what about the Goetia itself? Is there any truth to that whole Solomon connection?
Well, that's where things get a little murky. See, the book claims to be Solomon's wisdom.
Right.
But it was actually compiled way later. There are all these different versions and translations floating around.
Oh, wow.
Even Crowley himself casts doubt on its authenticity.
Really?
Yeah, right in the intro, he calls out, like, fake Rosicrucians.
He even mentions the previous translator possibly dying by demonic forces. That's a bit of a spooky tone, right?
Definitely adds to the mystique. And, it kind of ties into this idea that magic has always walked a fine line. Like Apollonius of Tyana, he practiced what they called natural magic, understanding, working with natural forces. But there's always this risk of it turning, diabolical if it's misused.
So even back then, people were aware of that sort of ethical baggage that comes with knowledge and power, especially when you're like dabbling with the unseen.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, I mean, if these so-called demonic forces are actually aspects of ourselves, what does that say about our own Nebuan potential for both good and evil?
Right. Like maybe the Goetia isn't just a guide to summoning demons, it's a reflection of these deeper forces inside us all.
Exactly. Forces that people were already exploring, grappling with centuries ago. So the Goetia, it offers this really interesting glimpse into how they thought about magic, psychology, even the unseen back then.
Okay, speaking of the unseen, let's get to the demons themselves. I mean, 72 of them, each with these unique powers.
Right.
I'm dying to hear about some of the more intriguing ones, like what's the deal with Baal? He's the first one listed, right?
Baal, he's the one who grants invisibility.
Ah, okay.
And, I mean, that's always been a major power fantasy, right?
It has.
From ancient myths to, like, modern spy thrillers, we're obsessed with the idea of blending in, observing unseen.
It's like the ultimate superpower, the ultimate escape from scrutiny.
Right.
But in a psychological sense, I mean, what could that represent?
Maybe it's about confronting our fears of being seen, the pressure to conform,
Right.
or even just wanting primacy and control, especially in a world that feels increasingly transparent.
I can definitely relate to that. All right. So besides disappearing acts, what other powers do these demons offer?
Well, there's Agares. He teaches languages,
Go-
but he can also cause earthquakes.
Whoa.
So think about the power of communication,
Right.
how words can literally shape our reality, but also how they can have these unintended consequences,
Oh, yeah.
creating upheaval, like one careless word. It's like an earthquake in your relationships.
Powerful analogy.
Right.
Makes you think about the responsibility that comes with communication,
Yeah.
especially in today's world where everyone's, hyper-connected.
Exactly. And it's not just about words either.
Right.
Agari is causing literal earthquakes. That also speaks to our anxieties about the natural world. Our ability to control or even comprehend these forces. So he represents both the creative and the destructive power of communication.
Wow.
And maybe even our own anxieties about the things we can't control.
So Agares is like a double-edged sword. Okay, who else should we meet on our demonic tour?
All right, let's move on to Paimon. He's a king in this whole demonic hierarchy.
Okay, a king. Huh?
Yeah, and this is where the Goetia gets really interesting.
Okay.
He's got a crown, he's riding a dromedary, there's a whole procession of spirits playing trumpets and cymbals. Talk about making an entrance.
Someone who knows how to command attention. So what kind of powers does this flamboyant king offer?
So Paimon is said to reveal all of Earth's secrets, right?
Wow.
And grant dignities.
So knowledge, any social power?
It's like he's the ultimate scholar king.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, what's the price tag on all of that?
Right, because power rarely comes for free.
Yeah.
What clues does the Goetia give us about, the downsides of dealing with Paimon?
Well, there's this curious little detail that might be a warning.
Okay.
It says he has a really powerful voice, almost a roar, and it's actually hard to understand him at first.
Ah, interesting.
So it's like the pursuit of knowledge, status, it can be so overwhelming, even deafening.
Right.
We might achieve our goals, but lose ourselves along the way.
That really resonates with me. It's like today, with just this constant flood of information online, it's so tempting to just chase every headline, to feel like you're in the know, but then it's easy to get lost in the noise and lose sight of what really matters.
Exactly. And there's this other detail that adds another layer of complexity here. Paimon is described as being very obedient to Lucifer.
Oh, wow.
So it makes you question, when we seek power and knowledge, are we serving our own WN goal?
Right.
Or are we being manipulated by something outside of ourselves?
Oh.
Maybe even our own unconscious desires.
That's a little chilling. It reminds me of those stories where someone makes a deal with the devil only to realize they've totally been tricked.
Exactly.
So Paimon, he's kind of this cautionary tale about the seductive but potentially treacherous path to power and knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to meet another one of these intriguing figures.
Oh, definitely. Let's talk about Sitri.
Okay.
He's a prince and he inflames lust.
Oh, yeah.
And he can also make people appear naked.
Okay, now we're getting into the shall we say, more personal stuff.
Right.
How does Crowley's psychological interpretation apply to Sitri?
So Sitri, he embodies these desires that drive us, often below the surface, sexuality, attraction, that urge to possess.
Right.
These are powerful forces.
They are.
And Crowley might say that he represents that need to confront those desires.
Okay.
Both the positive and the negative aspects.
It's like that saying, our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses.
Yeah.
Our passions can fuel this incredible creativity and drives, but they can also lead to these destructive behaviors if we're not careful.
Right. It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And think about Sitri's ability to make people appear naked.
Okay.
It's not just about literal nudity. It's about stripping away those masks that we all wear.
Right.
Exposing those vulnerabilities we try so hard to hide. It's like a forced confrontation with our deepest fears and insecurities.
That's a powerful image. It's like saying true intimacy requires vulnerability, which can be terrifying.
It can be.
So Sitri forces us to confront not just our desires, but also the vulnerability that comes with them. What else does the Goetia tell us about Sitri? What does he look like?
Oh, that's interesting, too. He's described as appearing in this beautiful human form.
Okay.
Which really highlights how seductive those desires can be.
Right.
They lure us in with these promises of pleasure, fulfillment, connection.
Yeah.
But we have to be mindful of the potential consequences.
It's a reminder that, we have a choice.
Hmm.
We can either be controlled by our desires, or we can learn to harness that energy for good.
Right.
It's like those stories about sirens luring sailors to their doom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Except here, the siren song is coming from within.
Exactly. And this whole exploration of Sitri, it brings us back to the central theme in the Goetia.
Okay.
The interplay of light and shadow within ourselves.
Right.
These spirits, these psychological archetypes, they're all part of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to us to integrate them in a healthy way.
This has been such an eye-opening journey through the Goetia. I'm starting to see how, even without literal demons, this ancient grimoire can actually be a powerful tool for self-discovery.
It really is, and we've only just scratched the surface here.
I know, right?
There's so much more to explore. We haven't even dived into the details of the rituals themselves.
That's true.
How they're structured, the risks involved.
Yeah, we still need to unpack how these rituals were supposed to actually work. Like, did they really believe they were summoning demons?
Wow.
What precautions did they take? Okay, so let's get into like the actual nuts and bolts of these Goetia rituals.
Okay.
We've talked about the spirits as these psychological forces, right?
Right.
But the book lays out these really elaborate procedures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, were those just for show? Or did they actually believe they were conjuring something?
I mean, these weren't just like casual chants.
Right.
These were carefully structured operations.
Wow.
Almost like psychological experiments designed to, get specific results.
Okay.
The Goetia is very specific about the tools required. So you need a circle, a triangle, the seals, special vestments, incense. It's all meticulously laid out.
So it's like this ancient recipe for magic with like precise ingredients and instructions.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind all that? Like all that paraphernalia?
Well, Crowley saw the circle as this mental boundary, like a container for all that magical energy being raised. And then the triangle, that's where the spirit's supposed to appear,
Right.
confined within that space. So, it's like setting the stage.
Okay.
You're creating a sacred space separate from the mundane world.
Yeah. I'm picturing like a magician in a dimly lit room.
Yeah.
Surrounded by candles, symbols, chanting these incantations. It's almost theatrical, right?
Right.
But was it just about creating a mood? Or did they think these actions like had a real effect?
It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. The vestments, the incense, those seals, they heighten the magician's focus. Like they're attuning them to the task at hand.
Right.
It's about creating a sensory experience that alters your consciousness.
So it's not just the words, it's the whole atmosphere, the ritual actions, the sensory input. It's all part of the magic.
Okay.
What about the conjurations themselves? Like, what were they actually saying?
Yeah. Okay. So they're filled with divine names, invocations, commands, almost like a sonic code, right? Designed to activate specific parts of the brain.
Interesting.
Crowley believed these words. They acted like vibrational keys, unlocking those dormant mental faculties.
Okay, so the words have power, the symbols have power, the rituals have power. But wasn't there also this sense of danger with all this?
Oh, absolutely. Even Crowley, with his psychological interpretation, he acknowledged the risks.
Okay.
The Goetia really stresses the importance of protections, the ring, the pentacle.
Okay.
And there are warnings about the spirit's potentially harmful nature. It's like venturing into this uncharted territory, right?
Yeah.
You might discover amazing things, but you also need to be prepared for the unexpected.
That's what makes this so fascinating. We're talking about a system of magic that's so intricate and potentially dangerous, and it's all focused on exploring those hidden depths of the mind. It's like the Goetia is a map to our own inner wilderness, complete with those warnings about, like, treacherous terrain.
It is, and it really gives us a glimpse into a time when those boundaries between the mind and the external world were more fluid. Makes you wonder, are we any less fascinated by the unknown today?
I mean, not at all.
Right.
We might not use the same language or tools, but we're still exploring those boundaries. Think about the rise of psychedelics, meditation, even the way we use technology now to alter our perception.
Right.
The human mind is still this vast, uncharted territory, full of potential and mystery.
It is. And maybe that's the most important takeaway from the Goetia. It's not just about demons.
Right.
It's about that fascination with the unknown, our desire to understand these hidden forces that shape our lives.
So if the Goetia spirits are really metaphors for, parts of ourselves, I mean, does that mean we all have the potential for both good and evil within us?
Well, that's a question for the ages, isn't it?
It is.
The Goetia doesn't give us any easy answers. But it does suggest that self-knowledge, it requires a journey into those shadows, confronting those darker impulses that we all carry.
It's like saying true power isn't about denying those shadows. It's about understanding them, integrating them.
Exactly. And maybe that's the true legacy of the Goetia. It's not about summoning demons, it's about summoning the courage to face ourselves, to explore the depths of our own being.
This has been such an incredible deep dive into the world of the Goetia. We've explored its history, its symbolism, those crazy rituals, and how surprisingly relevant it all feels to our own quest to understand the human mind.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Leaving us with probably more questions than answers.
Right.
But, that's what makes this ancient grimoire so captivating.
And as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with one final thought. If the Goetia spirits really do represent that hidden potential within each of us, what other mysteries are lurking in those unexplored depths of our minds? What will you discover when you dive deep?